They said the auction was going to be the biggest event of the year, but for the tiny furry alien girl, it was the worst day of her life. The hall was huge and filled with strange creatures from many planets, all looking for slaves or bargains. Chains clinked softly as the girl was pulled onto the stage, her small body, trembling eyes wide with fear. She was different from the others, small, furry, with big round eyes that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. Some people laughed at her size and appearance, calling her useless, broken, and worthless, the auctioneer shouted loudly, pushing her story like she was nothing but a cheap toy. No one wants this little thing. Not strong enough, not useful. Who will give a single credit for her? Most buyers turned away, uninterested in a slave who looked weak and fragile. But one human man stood quietly in the back, watching, his eyes not filled with mockery or greed. He noticed the way the girl looked at the crowd, scared, lost, and hoping for someone to save her. The auctioneer's voice grew louder. Last chance. Going once, going twice. No buyers, no price. The crowd started to lose interest, some even leaving early, thinking this was a wasted event. But the human stepped forward slowly, his voice calm but strong. I claim her as my mate. A hush fell over the hall. Shocked whispers spread quickly. Did he say mate? That's madness. The auctioneer stopped, looking confused. You want to buy this girl as your mate? For real? The human nodded. Yes, I do. She's not just a slave. She's someone I will protect and care for. People started to laugh. Some shouted insults, calling him crazy for wanting the tiny, furry alien girl. But the human ignored them, moving closer to the stage, his face serious and kind. The girl's eyes widened, unsure if this was a trick or if someone truly wanted to help her. Chains rattled as the guards prepared to release her to the human. But tension hung in the air. One of the loudest men from the crowd stepped forward. You don't know what you're doing. She's useless. The human looked at the man calmly. I see her worth. That's more than you ever will. A challenge was in his voice, but he did not back down. Holding his ground with quiet strength, the crowd watched, some surprised by the human's confidence and the girl's sudden hope when the chains were finally unlocked. The human took the girl gently in his arms. Her small body relaxed slightly, feeling a warmth she had never known before. The auction was over, but the real story was just beginning. Whispers followed them as they left. Why? Did he choose her? What does he see that others do not? The human did not answer, only looked ahead, ready to face whatever came next, and the tiny furry alien girl dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was finally free. The hall emptied, but the memory of that day would stay with everyone who saw the man claim the girl as his mate. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, there was hope. The human carried her away from the chains, from the jeers, from the dark past, in his eyes. She was not a slave, but a partner, a mate, a new beginning. The night grew quiet as they stepped into the unknown. Together, no one knew what awaited them, but one thing was clear. Their story would change everything. The tiny furry alien girl stayed quiet in the human's arms as they left the noisy auction hall. Her heart was still pounding, afraid but also curious about this strange man who had claimed her as his mate. She looked up at him with wide, unsure eyes, wondering what would happen next. The human's name was Jack, a calm and strong man from Earth who had traveled far from home. He did not care about the gossip or the sneers he had heard, only about keeping the girls safe. His voice was soft as he spoke. Don't be afraid. I won't let anyone hurt you again. But the girl, whose name was Leary, had been hurt many times before. She had learned not to trust easily, especially not humans, who often treated her kind as property. She remained silent, her small hands gripping his clothes tightly. Unsure if this was real or another trap, they walked through a dark, crowded market filled with alien voices, strange smells, and flashing lights. Jack kept looking around carefully, knowing they were not safe yet. Traders and bounty hunters might still be searching for Leary to take her back. Jack found a small, hidden alley where they could rest for a moment. He sat down gently, setting Leary on his lap, and took a small pack from his bag. He offered her some food, something warm and soft to eat. But she only shook her head shyly. "I know it's hard to trust, but you need strength if we want to escape," he said kindly. Slowly, Leary took a small bite, the warmth of the food spreading through her cold body. For the first time in a long time, she felt a tiny spark of hope. Jack began to explain his plan. "Speaking carefully so no one nearby could hear, we can't stay here long. They will send people to find you. We have to leave this city and hide." Leary listened, her eyes searching his face, trying to understand if he meant what he said. She asked quietly, "Why do you want me?" "I'm small, weak, and useless to everyone." Jack smiled softly. "You are not useless to me. You have a strength they don't see." She looked at him with surprise. But Jack did not explain more, knowing it was not yet time. As night fell, they moved again, slipping through the shadows like ghosts. The city was dangerous at night, filled with creatures that hunted for profit and power. Jack stayed alert, his senses sharp, ready to protect Leary at any cost. Suddenly, a group of rough-looking men appeared ahead, blocking their path. Jack's heart raced, but he stayed calm and stepped forward. Standing tall and firm, the men sneered, "That little furball belongs to us. Hand her over now." Jack's voice was steady. "She is under my protection now. You will not take her." The men laughed, drawing weapons that glowed in the dark. A fight seemed certain. But Jack's quick reflexes and strength made the attackers hesitate. Leary watched in awe as the human fought with skill and courage. She felt a strange warmth growing inside her, a feeling she had never known before. When the attackers finally ran away, Jack held her close and whispered, "We're safe for now." That night, in a quiet, hidden place, Leary slowly began to open up. She told Jack about her home planet, a world where her kind lived free and proud. But war and slavery had destroyed everything, leaving her alone and scared. Jack listened carefully. Feeling the weight of her pain, he promised, "I will help you find a way back home or make a new one with me." Leary's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were tears of hope, not fear. Days passed as they traveled together, hiding from those who wanted to capture Leary. The bond between them grew stronger, built on trust and understanding. Jack taught her simple words from his language, and Leary showed him how to move quietly one evening as they rested under the stars. Leary's small hand touched Jack's. She smiled faintly, a sign that she was beginning to believe in their future. Jack smiled back, knowing their journey had only just begun. But danger was never far away. And the next challenge would test their courage like never before. Together, they prepared to face whatever came next. Knowing that as long as they had each other, they could survive anything. The story of the tiny furry alien girl and the human mate was far from over, and the galaxy was about to learn that true strength comes from trust and heart. The stars flickered softly above as Jack and Leary moved cautiously through the dense forest on the outskirts of the city. The air was cool and filled with the sounds of strange creatures lurking in the dark. Leary's small furry form stayed close to Jack, trusting him more with each step they took. Jack noticed how her eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, a soft light that made her seem almost magical. He wondered what secrets lay hidden inside this tiny alien girl who had survived so much. They had escaped the auction, but the danger was not gone. Bounty hunters and slavers still searched for her one night as they camped beneath a giant tree. Jack sat beside Leary and asked gently, Can you show me what you can do?" Leary looked confused, then shy, but slowly she nodded. She stood and stretched. Her body small but surprisingly strong, then closed her eyes, focusing hard. Suddenly, the air around them shimmered, and a faint shield appeared, glowing softly like a bubble. Jack gasped in surprise. "You have power. That's incredible." Leary smiled faintly, but said, "I learned to protect myself. I had to, or I would be gone." She explained how her people had special abilities. Gifts from their planet's energy. Many could create shields, heal wounds, or move quickly without being seen. But after the war and the raids, most had lost hope, hiding their powers for fear of capture. Jack felt respect and awe for Leary. She was much more than the weak slave everyone had believed her to be. He promised her quietly, "I will help you find your strength again, and we will fight for your freedom." The days that followed were filled with training and discovery. Jack taught Leary how to fight with simple weapons and how to use her powers. Carefully, she learned fast, her confidence growing with each success. But their peaceful moments were shattered one afternoon when a group of alien hunters found their trail. Jack and Leary had been careless, leaving signs behind. The hunters moved silently, their faces hidden beneath dark helmets, weapons ready. Jack saw them first and whispered urgently, "We have to run. Now." Leary nodded, activating her shield just as the hunters opened fire. Bright blasts hit the shield but bounced off. Protecting them both, they ran through the forest, branches whipping at their faces, heartbeats pounding in their ears. Leary's powers began to drain, her shield flickering dangerously. Jack knew they had to find shelter fast, or they would be caught. At last, they reached a cave hidden behind thick vines. Jack helped Leary inside, and they barricaded the entrance with heavy rocks. Inside the dark cave, their breaths echoed loudly. But they were safe for the moment. Leary looked exhausted, her fur damp with sweat, but her eyes shone with determination. "I never thought I could be this strong," she said softly. Jack smiled. "You are stronger than you know. We are stronger together." That night, as they rested in the cave, Leary shared more of her story. She told Jack about her family, lost in the war, and how she had been captured when she was very young. Her voice was filled with sadness, but also hope that maybe one day she would find peace. Jack held her hand gently, offering comfort without words. He knew his choice to claim her as his mate was more than fate. It was a promise to protect and cherish her. Together, they planned their next move, knowing they could not stay hidden forever. As dawn broke, they left the cave, ready to face the galaxy's dangers. Their journey was far from over. But with every step, Leary's powers grew stronger. The tiny furry alien girl was no longer a prisoner of her past. She was becoming a warrior, and Jack was proud to stand by her side as her mate, her friend, and her protector. The story of the chained girl was turning into a tale of courage and hope that no one could ignore. The sun dipped low behind distant mountains as Jack and Leary approached a quiet village hidden deep within the forest. This place was different from the crowded cities they had left behind, peaceful. With soft lights glowing from small homes, Jack hoped this village could be their safe haven, a place to rest and heal from their long journey. Leary stayed close to Jack, her small furry body tense but curious. She had never seen a place like this before. No chains, no harsh voices, only gentle smiles and kind eyes. The villagers were a mix of aliens and humans, living quietly together. Away from the war and greed of the outer worlds, Jack spoke to the village elder, a wise and gentle woman who welcomed them without question. "We have been hunted," Jack said simply. "We need shelter and time to recover." The elder nodded and offered them a small home at the edge of the village. Surrounded by trees and flowers, Leary stepped inside the home, her eyes wide with wonder. It was warm and clean, filled with soft blankets and food, things she had only dreamed of. For the first time in many moons, she felt safe, but deep inside, a part of her remained guarded. Days passed slowly in the village, filled with healing and learning. Jack helped Leary train her powers quietly, teaching her control and patience. Leary's shield became stronger, and she discovered new abilities, like sensing danger before it came. But as she grew stronger, Leary also struggled with memories of her past. She remembered the chains, the cruel traders, and the fear she had carried like a shadow. One evening, she sat by the fire, tears shining in her big eyes. Jack sat beside her and said softly, "You are not those memories. You are who you choose to be." Leary looked at him, hope and pain mixing in her gaze. "I want to be free. Not just from chains, but from the fear inside me," she whispered. Jack took her hand and promised, "Together, we will find that freedom." Their bond grew deeper, no longer just protector and protected, but partners facing a future unknown. But peace was fragile in the galaxy, and soon the village felt the first shadow of trouble. One night, strange ships appeared in the sky, shining bright and moving fast. Villagers gathered, fear spreading like wildfire as the ships landed nearby. Jack and Leary prepared quietly, knowing they could not hide this time. The visitors were bounty hunters, searching for the tiny furry alien girl who had escaped. They came with weapons and machines designed to capture, not talk. The village elder stepped forward bravely. "We do not want war here," she said firmly, but the hunters ignored her words, sending a message loud and clear: they would take Leary no matter what. Jack stood protectively in front of Leary, ready to fight. Leary's powers flared, her shield glowing bright and strong. The villagers watched, inspired by the courage of the small pair who refused to back down. A fierce battle began, bright beams and explosions lighting the night. Jack fought with skill, protecting Leary as she used her powers to block attacks and confuse the enemy. The hunters underestimated their strength, surprised by the human and alien working as one in the heat of battle. Leary felt a new power rise inside her, faster, stronger, sharper. She moved like the wind, dodging attacks and striking back with energy blasts that stunned the hunters. Jack smiled, proud and amazed by her courage. The hunters retreated, defeated but warning they would return with more forces. The village cheered for their protectors, hope rising even in the darkest hour after the battle. Jack and Leary knew they could not stay in the village forever. Their fight for freedom was just beginning, and greater dangers waited beyond the stars. But for now, they had found allies and a place to call home, even if only for a short while. Leary looked up at the sky, the stars shining bright and endless. She whispered softly, "I am not a slave. I am free. And I will fight for that freedom." Jack nodded beside her. "And I will fight with you, always." Their journey was far from over, but together they were unstoppable. The tiny furry alien girl and her human mate were ready to face whatever the galaxy threw at them, because sometimes the smallest sparks could start the biggest fires. The dawn broke with a soft glow as Jack and Leary prepared for the battle they knew was coming. The village had barely recovered from the last attack, but now the hunters were returning stronger and more dangerous. Jack checked his weapons carefully, making sure everything was ready. Leary sat nearby, her small furry hands glowing with energy as she focused on her powers. She no longer felt like the scared girl from the auction. She was becoming a fighter. The villagers gathered quietly, ready to defend their home alongside Jack and Leary. They formed a line of hope and courage against the approaching threat. The hunters' ships appeared on the horizon, dark and heavy, blocking the sky. Jack felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but he stayed calm. He looked at Leary and said, "This is our chance to show them we will not be taken." As the hunters landed, the battle began with a loud roar. Energy blasts lit the sky, metal clashing against metal, and the ground shook beneath their feet. Jack fought with fierce determination. Protecting Leary as she unleashed her powers, Leary's shield grew larger and stronger, surrounding the villagers like a glowing dome. She sent pulses of energy that knocked hunters off their feet and stopped their weapons cold. Her confidence soared with each victory, and Jack could see the warrior inside her rising. But the hunters were not easily defeated, and soon a giant machine appeared, a terrifying beast of metal and fire. It moved slowly but crushed everything in its path. Jack knew they had to stop it before it destroyed the village. Leary stepped forward bravely, her eyes shining bright. She focused all her energy on the machine, sending waves of power that made it hesitate. Jack took his chance and aimed his strongest weapon, striking the beast's core. The machine exploded. In a shower of sparks and smoke, falling silent at last, the hunters, seeing their weapon destroyed, began to retreat, shouting threats of revenge. The villagers cheered, their hope restored. After the battle, Jack and Leary were tired but proud. They had fought together and won, proving that even the smallest could be the strongest. That night, under the stars, Leary shared a secret with Jack. She told him about a hidden power inside her, a connection to her people's ancient energy. If she learned to control it, she could change the fate of her entire race. Jack listened carefully, knowing this secret was important. He promised to help her unlock this power, no matter the cost. But danger was far from over, and new enemies were already watching from the shadows. The story of the tiny furry alien girl and her human mate was becoming legend, and the galaxy would soon learn that their fight for freedom was only beginning. The quiet after the battle was a thin veil over the storm that was coming. Jack and Leary stood together in the clearing outside the village, their faces lit by the soft glow of dawn. The sky was painted with colors of hope, but both knew their fight was far from over. Leary held Jack's hand tightly, her eyes filled with a secret she had not yet shared. That morning, as the village slept, Leary began to speak in a voice soft but firm. "There is something you must know," she said. "Something about who I really am." Jack listened closely. Sensing the weight of her words, she told him of her true heritage. She was not just a captured slave, but a member of a royal bloodline. Her people had been shattered by war, and she was the last hope to restore their honor and strength. Her small, furry form hid powers beyond what even she had understood. Leary explained how the chains they had used were meant to suppress her abilities, to keep her weak, but with Jack's help, those powers were awakening, stronger than ever before. Jack felt a mix of awe and responsibility. Realizing that claiming her as his mate meant more than protection, it meant standing beside a future queen, a leader of a lost people. Together, they prepared for what was coming, enemies from her world who would stop at nothing to find her. One evening, as shadows lengthened, figures appeared at the edge of the village, dark and silent. They moved with deadly precision, their goal clear: to capture Leary and bring her back. Jack and Leary stood side by side, ready to defend the village and their future. Leary's powers flared brightly, a shield of energy surrounding them. Jack fought with fierce determination, his weapons flashing as he protected her. The battle was fierce, the enemy skilled and relentless. But the bond between Jack and Leary was stronger than any weapon. Together, they pushed back the attackers, forcing them to retreat into the night. The village was safe, but the warning was clear. Greater threats were on the horizon. Jack looked at Leary and said, "We will face them all, as mates and warriors." Leary smiled, her heart full of hope and courage. Their story was no longer just about escape or survival. It was about destiny, love, and the fight to reclaim a lost legacy. The galaxy was watching, and the tiny furry alien girl and her human mate were ready to change everything. The stars sparkled brightly above as Jack and Leary stood side by side, their hands intertwined, hearts beating as one against the vast unknown. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of danger, mystery, and hope. Together, they had faced darkness, cruelty, and fear, but now they stood ready to face whatever came next, united and strong. Leary looked up at Jack, her furry face calm and determined. She was no longer the tiny girl chained and scared. She had grown into a fierce warrior with powers that shone like the stars themselves. Jack smiled warmly, feeling pride and love fill his chest. He knew their bond was more than just fate. It was a promise of a future. They returned to the village where the people greeted them with cheers and hope. The once quiet village, now buzzed with energy, inspired by the courage of the human and the alien. Leary began to train others, sharing her powers and knowledge. She taught the villagers to protect themselves, to stand tall against any threat. Jack helped build defenses and organized a small group of warriors. Together, they created a family, one born from trust and courage. But the galaxy would not wait long before testing their strength again. News came that a powerful alien warlord had learned of Leary's survival. He sent fleets to capture her and crush any resistance. The village prepared for war. Fear and determination mixed in every heart. Jack and Leary led the defense, their skills and bond inspiring all around them. The battle was fierce and long, ships clashing in the sky, energy beams lighting up the darkness, explosions shaking the ground. Leary's powers reached new heights, her shield protecting many. Jack fought with bravery, never letting go of her side. Together, they turned the tide of battle. The warlord's forces retreated, defeated but warned of returning after the victory. Jack and Leary stood on a hill overlooking the stars. Leary spoke softly. "We have come far, but our journey is just beginning." Jack nodded, "And we will face it all." Together, their story spread across the galaxy. A tale of a tiny furry alien girl who was once chained, and a human who claimed her as his mate. Together, they had changed not only their own fate, but the future of many in a galaxy full of darkness. Their bond was a shining light, proof that love, trust, and courage could overcome any chain. And as they looked to the stars, hand in hand, they knew this was only the beginning of their great adventure.